What is going on, everybody? This is another episode of Coordinated Chaos. In this episode, we will be recapping what happened in Week 4 of the NFL football season, as well as we're going to get to some of my favorite Week 5 matchups against the spread, and then we're going to finish with some potential player movement, some trade deadline talk at the end. So let's go ahead and hop right into the first game of Week 4. That was Thursday Night Football against the Cowboys and the Giants. That was a normal NFC East matchup for the most part. Cowboys are the victor like they normally are, and the Giants really didn't seem like they really wanted to win that game in the first place with some of the decisions that Brian Daboll ended up going with there. Just not going for it when it was fourth down and 3 on the 3-yard line, or fourth down and goal, I should say, on the 3-yard line. Just some of those coaching decisions that I think can eventually cost him his job. Because at the end of the day, you're going against a better team, the Cowboys, at the very least. You got to be aggressive in those situations in order to win some of those ball games that you're not really supposed to win. And Malik Nabers was playing his rear off in the game. You had some momentum going in it, but Daniel Jones couldn't connect with some of the long downfield shots that would have probably put them over the top in that game. And so you just kind of get the combination of Daboll not being a great head coach, as well as Daniel Jones not being a great quarterback right now.
Yeah, it wasn't a very pretty Thursday night football game, and I hate to see. I'm pretty sure Nabers got hurt. That kind of stinks to see, especially as a rookie. But this is one of those wins where it's good for the Cowboys to get the win because they really needed it. But it's not one of those wins where they can walk out like, yeah, we just played some good football. It was kind of like we got a little lucky and stole it. So they still have some things to figure out. But yeah, the Giants. Just Daniel Jones, he misses way too many throws that they need for them to make to beat a better team.
Yeah, like you said, I don't think the Cowboys can kind of leave this game feeling great about anything. If you beat the Giants by 5 points, you don't feel great about the outing, as well as the fact that whenever they left this game, they're going to be without Michael Parsons for, I think, at least a game with a high ankle sprain. And then DeMarcus Lawrence, their other defensive end, he's going to be out for a couple of weeks at the very least. Potential IR candidate. I think he might have already gone on IR, so he's gone for a little while. The defense was already struggling, couldn't really stop the run, even though they were able to do that a little bit in the game against the Giants. But moving forward, they're going to have some tough tests ahead of them. They got the Steelers this upcoming week, the Cowboys, I should say, or clarify. They're going to have to get their act together, but I don't know how they're going to be able to do it with all the injuries that they're incurring at this point. And there is some rumors out there about some player movement, like we're going to get to later on. It looks like the Cowboys were speculated to be in on a potential Davante Adams trade, but they've already shot that down, saying that they're actually not interested, which I know a lot of Cowboys fans are probably pissed off about because they're like, what else? You didn't make moves in the offseason. You said the team's good enough. They're clearly not good enough right now with what they've put on the field in this season so far. And you still just refuse to put weapons around Dak.
Yeah, the Cowboys they're superstar heavy. So you take their top 3 just players, they can play with any of the top 3 players. But once you get past CD, Parsons, and Dak, the drop off is fairly heavy, and it ends up costing them when one of those guys goes down. Or people have figured out if you jam CeeDee Lamb and you have someone over the top, they just cannot get him the ball, and then it ends up being someone else's problem to get open. And Cowboys have not quite figured out how to win with other people yet.
Yeah, they just don't have the secondary and alternative weapons to really get the job done. If one of those people, like you said, either miss or they just kind of game plan towards double teaming one of those guys.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the Vikings versus the Packers, a NFC North rivalry, obviously. Big time deal. Jordan Love comes back in this game from his MCL sprain he suffered in Week 1 against the Eagles, and he's playing against the 3-0 Vikings at the time. And the Vikings come into Lambeau and go out to a 28-0 lead very quickly early on in that game. Sam Darnold looking incredible once again. And the Packers just didn't have an answer until a little bit later in the game where essentially they had to be in pass mode only, and Jordan Love was slinging the rock around the field. Got them a little bit back in that game. It was mostly more or less garbage time-ish type play, but he still had some time to get some stuff done at the end, but they just couldn't get the full comeback going.
Yeah, it's tough in the NFL to go down 28-0 and then just expect your team to fully come back, and they tried all they could, but you can't start. You have to be able to snap out of it at like 14 or 21. Like, all right, we have to get going until it gets to 4 scores. But it was an impressive win. The Vikings and the Chiefs, who'd have thought they were the only 2 unbeatens?
I know, that's a crazy one. Nobody would have bet that at the beginning of the season, honestly. But yeah, no, it's just and there's obviously some fantasy implications coming out of this game as well when you consider the fact that Christian Watson once again gets hurt again, which he's been doing the last couple years in a row now. So he goes out with an ankle sprain. They're saying it's mild, but I don't know what that exactly means when it comes to an ankle sprain. Like, I don't know how you really determine that this early on. But at the very least, Dontavian Wicks stepped up in a big way, and so he's potentially on people's waivers right now. If he is, pick him up. If you were smart enough to grab him or draft him and hold him until now, you look like a genius. So shout out to anybody that's been doing that or has, put the fab out there in order to pick him up in waivers.
Yeah, I wish he was someone that I had grabbed because I got stuck with Ridley, and Ridley hasn't gotten it done. But it's nice to see the Packers have other players stepping up, and I would like to add that Jordan Love is 0-2 and Malik Willis is 2-0. I just want to throw that out there.
That is just a fun stat. About. Yeah, that's actually wild to think about, but I think they're going to be fine long term. The fact that they were able to go 2-0 in that span was huge. Yeah. And Jordan Love will only get better as the season goes on with that MCL sprain and how it heals up and whatnot. Let's go on to the next game, Eagles versus Buccaneers. This was an absolute just crap show from the beginning. I mean, the Eagles let Baker Mayfield and the offense just trot right down the field right at the beginning of the game, 7-0 very quickly. Eagles go 3 and out. Tampa Bay goes right back down the field again, 14-0. Eagles go 3 and out for a third time in a row, and they go down and score again, 21-0 right off the rip. And then the Eagles have a terrible special teams penalty where Isaiah Rodgers pushes the gunner into Cooper DeJean, our punt returner, which ends up being a penalty. The ball bounces off of Cooper DeJean, and it goes to the Bucs to get the ball back in our territory once again. And then they kick a field goal. It's 24-0 right off the rip in this game. The Eagles haven't been able to get anything done on offense. 0 yards midway through the second quarter in a game which, I know you are missing your pieces in A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Lane Johnson. Those 3 of the most important people in the offense. But you couldn't go into Tampa Bay and just get embarrassed like this.
Yeah, the start was just horrific. And the Eagles are a team, they're great when they're in a close game or they're ahead, but Hurts struggles when it comes to just making the baller plays. And he wasn't, they came back kind of, but
they had a chance.
Yeah, they had a chance, but obviously the injury sucks, but everyone's battling the injury bug, so everyone's going to have to figure it out. But I think it was impressive for the Bucs because if I remember correctly, the week before, didn't they lose to the Broncos?
They did. They did. They looked terrible against the Broncos, which we're now learning the Broncos' defense is no joke. Yeah, they're very good, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense.
It does, but it's good to see the Bucs rebound because, what are the NFC South? Mm-hmm. It's got to look better for the Panthers.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. The biggest thing, one of my biggest takeaways from the Eagles-Buccaneers game was just the fact that Vic Fangio was able to get this perfect game plan together against the New Orleans Saints, but then completely came out flat with the strategy and the adjusting and the adaptation to what was going on mid-game against Tampa Bay. I didn't understand the strategy going into it. They came out and they were in super soft coverage, and Vic Fangio is known for his bend don't break defense. The problem with that is with a bend don't break defense, man, if one guy doesn't execute well, the whole thing falls apart like a house of cards. Yeah. Because if that guy doesn't make a tackle, if there's a missed tackle, those bend don't breaks type stuff, it ends up bending and then breaking at the end, and then they've had these long strung out drives that are taking time of possession away from your offense. So the offense isn't on the field getting in a rhythm, even though they couldn't get in a rhythm at all because the offense was struggling. That's part of it as well. But it was just a combination of just bad stuff going on for the offense and the defense, and none of it was in sync whatsoever.
Yeah, the issue with the bend but don't break is as you said, it takes time. But if your offense is struggling, your defense is letting up touchdowns that take 7 minutes, then your offense is off the field in a minute. Yep. Then you're back on there.
Defense gets more tired.
You get exhausted. You can't really hold for and it's just
and especially down there in Tampa this past week, the hurricane just came through. Humidity's at an all-time high because of the moisture in the air. They said it was 94 degrees there, but it felt like 108.
Yeah.
So people were leaving, especially the Eagles players, which the Bucs did a smart thing. They wore their all-white jerseys, which caused the Eagles to wear their home green jerseys, which is darker. Obviously, the sun is attracted to the darker color. And you get people leaving with cramps and hydration problems, and so
people don't last as many plays as they.
Yeah, we had all kinds of problems going in and out of that game, and so the Bucs just completely outplayed the Eagles. The Eagles were completely unprepared, and I feel like almost mentally, because they were without those three offensive players, they went into the game thinking we don't really have a chance, and then they just kind of like as soon as they went up like 14-0, 21-0, they're like this game's cooked. Yeah. So. And just Jalen Hurts, once again, 2 turnovers, 2 strip sacks. Didn't throw a pick in this game, so I guess that's progress. But he's got to be a little bit more aware in the pocket and not do that.
Yeah, he does. The turnovers are bad, but yeah, everything combining for the Eagles is tough because the start is not good. When you're lacking your star players, it's like you go in there with your head hung. It's hot as crap. Yeah. You don't even want to be there. And I think my thing with the Eagles defense is I think they're too talented to be a bend but don't break. I think they're capable of playing most teams, not necessarily man to man, but like they don't need to give up a bunch 15 yards off the line to not allow these big plays. Like I just think they're good enough to where they could guard much closer and tighter.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think the Eagles have proven Darius Slay is a good man-to-man guy. So is Quinyon Mitchell. He's proved it in the first few weeks here. I know he's a rookie, but you got to at least get him tested at some point. And
sure.
he showed up big against Mike Evans in this game. Only allowed 4 catches or something like that, and I don't know, there's something less than 50 yards, I believe, when he was guarding him at least.
Yeah,
but it was pretty impressive what the Bucs were able to do on offense. They knew that the Eagles were in this off coverage. They started throwing perimeter screens, and that just means the Eagles then have to figure out a way to tackle. Yeah. The Eagles couldn't figure out a way to tackle. There was 14 missed tackles or something like that in the game, and that makes a normal 5-yard game or 5-yard gain into a 10-12 yard gain, and then like I said, then that's when the bending becomes breaking at the end of those drives.
It adds up over time, and also as a player, it just completely adds to your frustration of everyone knows I'm supposed to be the guy to make this tackle. I had a chance to make the tackle and I missed.
Yeah. Then
call it 3rd and 6. You missed. They get the first down. You have to stay on the field. Everyone's gassed, defeated, and then it just adds up.
Yeah, it can snowball on people that too. Because if you miss that first tackle, then you miss a second one, you're starting to doubt yourself.
You get a bad penalty, you get frustrated. It's not a good recipe.
Not good. So the Eagles go into the bye at 2-2. Honestly, with all the injuries and whatnot, if you would have told me they were going to go 2-2 before the bye, I probably would have taken it. Yeah. But I just didn't like the optics of how bad this looked in Tampa Bay.
They won the harder games. They lost to the Falcons at home. You're kind of really?
Yeah. I don't know what they beat the Packers and the Saints, which looked like 2 of the better teams in the NFC,
for sure.
At least to start the season off, and then they lost to Tampa Bay, who's been playing pretty good, and then the Falcons on Monday Night Football. All right, let's move on to the Commanders versus the Cardinals. This one, once again, Jayden Daniels just balling out. Just goes into Arizona, another road game for him, and it doesn't matter. It goes out there, balls out. The run game's really working for Brian Robinson Jr. as well as Jayden Daniels when he's taking off and running with the ball as well. The defense is playing well enough to sustain these leads that Jayden Daniels is getting them essentially. So they're playing pretty efficient ball right now. He did throw an interception in this game, which is his first, I think, of the season. And so the dude's balling out, and the offense is cooking. They could potentially be in on a guy like a Devontae Adams moving forward, or Amari Cooper. We'll get to that a little bit later, who the teams I would prefer one of those guys to go to. But, if they get another weapon like that, because they were in on the Brandon Ayuk type of sweepstakes earlier on in the offseason, whenever he was doing his contract dispute with the 49ers. But, Commanders look good.
They did, and especially for the Commanders, the issue with getting a receiver when you have a rookie quarterback before the season started is it's I don't know if this guy's going to be all that good. Daniels runs a lot of turnovers. But now you're like, oh crap! Like I want to
get this guy weapons.
Yeah. And if there's anyone who deserves a good quarterback, it's Terry McLaurin.
Oh.
He's been the most patient human with just the most. I love Sam Howell, but with the most bummy quarterbacks over and over. And finally, he's got someone who can sling it to him and he can get open, and it's fun to see for him.
Yeah, I've never seen Terry McLaurin in a locker room look so happy in my life after that game. They went crazy. They gave the game ball to Cliff Kingsbury because obviously he was the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals the last time he coached in the NFL. Obviously didn't work out for him there, but he put together a pretty good game plan against the Cardinals, and they completely routed the Cardinals in this game. Cardinals offense still decent, defense really bad.
Yeah.
It is we kind of already know this by now. This is the way it's going to go for them. But for fantasy purposes, a lot of their players are going to be valuable, considering the fact that their offense is pretty solid, yet their defense is going to give up points. You're going to want those players in shootout type scenarios in order to get more fantasy points. So I like that going forward for them, obviously, in that respect. But Cardinals are struggling a little bit.
They are, but. Because I like Marvin Harrison, but they don't have much more than him. Yeah. But it's nice to see the Commanders have a quarterback that looks like he's kind of the truth. Yeah. And the rest, and then it builds some hype in a city that used to be known for NFL football.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that fan base has awoken for the first time in over a decade at the very least.
They see something of uh-oh.
Yeah, they see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. It's here, finally. But let's go on to the next game, Chiefs versus Chargers. This one, not a whole lot to talk about here, but I feel like I had to go and talk about the storyline of what happened to Rashee Rice. Yeah. And so, obviously, the Chiefs get the win. It wasn't pretty. Chargers were not good in this game at all. Justin Herbert really had zero time to throw the football, and it was just kind of a disaster for them offensively. Once again, I feel like that's the story for the past 3 years. Obviously, Harbaugh coming in has made things better than it had been in the past, but it's still a little bit iffy with the offensive line, and there's been injuries and whatnot. Yeah. So because Joe Alt's not playing, but the Kansas City Chiefs get the W, but at the behest of an injury to their probably best offensive player this far this season, other than obviously Mahomes and Rashee Rice, and Mahomes throws a pick. He's going down the sideline, and Rashee Rice goes to strip the ball out of the guy's hand that actually intercepted it. And at the same time, Mahomes goes to undercut him with his knee. His head/shoulder hits Rashee Rice's planted leg. And from what we hear so far, there hasn't been any more news than we knew from Sunday.
They think torn ACL,
but they think torn ACL. A lot of people fantasy wise are hoping that it's only a hyperextension bad bone bruise or something like that, because I know he's been the linchpin in a lot of fantasy lineups since week one, obviously, and he was doing an incredible job. He was leading the league in passing or in receiving yards, and so he was a big part of their offense. Obviously, they were already without Isaiah Pacheco. Now they're going to be without Rashee Rice. That is two of their better players on offense. Obviously, now Travis Kelce's going to have to step back up and kind of, even though I think they were kind of saving him a little bit offensively, I think he's going to have to do some more stuff considering they don't have any more weapons, and they're going to have to keep up in just the division, the NFL, the standings in general.
Yeah, they were able to win the game, which they normally figure out how to do because their defense, their offense, the first quarter and a half, horrible. And it sucks what happened to Rashee Rice. That's just really unfortunate. But as far as being a Kelce fantasy owner that I am, I'm
there's some upside here.
So but it was nice to see because Kelce started. The game plan was weird because it seemed like it was almost force feed Kelce, which is why that pick got thrown. He was not open, ball was overthrown, but they figured out how to win. And Chris Jones, once again, when they needed some plays to happen, he would force some stuff to happen. Yep. But offensively, they have some things they need to figure out because when they run into a Ravens, they're not going to be able to hold them to 10 points.
Yeah, I agree. They're going to have to start getting very creative offensively. Obviously, with Pacheco out, they tried the Carson Steele experiment. It went okay against the Falcons on Sunday Night Football, but then this week he fumbles.
Yeah, he didn't hold the ball very well.
Didn't do a good job there, and Kareem Hunt more or less took over the role. And so I think moving forward, if you were once again a guy that scooped him up on waivers, that's a great pickup because I feel like he's going to be the guy moving forward for the Kansas City Chiefs in the backfield. All right, let's move on to Bills versus Ravens. This was a crazy game. Last week, I thought this was one of the better bets of the week, that the Bills were going to be underdogs by 2.5 points against the Ravens, and I was completely wrong about that. And the Ravens from the jump just jumped all over the Buffalo Bills. First play from scrimmage for the Ravens,
87-yard touchdown.
87-yard touchdown from Derrick Henry, just outruns everybody. We were discussing it earlier, just how bad of an angle that safety took for the Bills to try to cut off Derrick Henry, and he just outran the whole defense there. Just an impressive run from a guy that big, that fast, and that old now, considering he's just up there in age for a running back.
Yeah, the Ravens offense, they're kind of like the Bills. When it's on, you're like, how does this team lose? Mm-hmm. And then the times it's turned off, you're like, they're terrible.
Yeah.
But they were on today, and this was one of the games that showed that Josh Allen doesn't have too much around him, because he had to play hero ball, and it didn't really happen all game.
Yeah, it was crazy. They got a little bit of momentum. The Bills, I should say, got a little bit of momentum going into, I don't even know what time period this was in the game, but then they decided to do that weird trick play, and it ended up in a fumble. Yeah, it ended up in a fumble, and it was just a disaster.
Yeah, that killed the momentum.
It murdered.
I think they got to down 10. They were driving, and they tried to run like a double reverse flea flicker, and Josh Allen got trucked.
Yeah,
lost the ball, and then that was just it.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't like the decision there to risk something whenever you were building something on offense. Finally, for the first time in the game, starting to crawl back into the game. But the Ravens took advantage of it. I will still say, obviously, the past couple of weeks we've been vying for the Ravens to find their identity, in which it probably should be Derrick Henry to run the football. They've clearly done that. They've taken that, at face value and done a really good job there. I will say, though, what's still concerning is the lack of wide receiver production. Zay Flowers didn't do a whole lot. Rashad Bateman didn't do a whole lot. The tight ends haven't done a lot this season. A lot of fantasy owners know that. And I think the second leading receiving guy on the team is Justice Hill, the running back, which he got a touchdown in this game. I started him in fantasy in the league. I had to. I'm not going to take credit for knowing that was going to happen. But yeah, it was. I don't know how sustainable this success on offense is going to be whenever I know you want your identity to be whatever your strong suit is, which is run the ball with Derrick Henry, but there are going to be games and game scripts where you get down early, just a team hops out on a lead and you can't run the ball anymore. Can the Ravens keep up in a game like that?
Yeah, the receivers is definitely a problem, and I don't know if they can afford a Devontae Adams or an Amari Cooper, especially since they just paid Derrick Henry, but just one of those guys. Yeah. Just because if you push Zay Flowers to a receiver 2 and then likely can be the third option, and then that team can get something going. But Derrick Henry is, one, he's obviously his own weapon, but he benefits so much from having Lamar Jackson, because you can't just assume it's going to be a handoff. Yep. Lamar could pull it, anything could happen. But everyone right now offensively seems to have some things they all need to be figuring out.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's still early on. A lot of people like to say that the first 4 weeks of the season are still the preseason. Yeah. Real football doesn't start until October. So we'll see if that's a thing where you kind of get the kinks out until October rolls around. Obviously, there's a lot of teams on bye in week 5, so we'll see if people figure some things out on the bye week. But yeah, I like what I saw from the Ravens. Like I said, will it be sustainable? We'll figure out going forward. The next game and the last game we'll be recapping here is Seahawks versus Lions. This was the Monday night matchup. The better of the two. The other one, the Titans and the Dolphins, was absolutely a disgusting display of football. We're not going to touch on that. This game, though, was absolute fireworks.
Offense.
Yeah, straight offense. So many points. It was awesome. Jared Goff goes 18 for 18, a perfect score.
Caught a touchdown.
Yeah, caught a touchdown. Just had an absolute, he had the cycle for a football player. It was crazy. Obviously, their offense was clicking on all cylinders there. They got everybody involved. Everybody was getting catches. If you had one of the Detroit Lions
running backs, receivers.
If you had one of the anybody you had in fantasy, they produced pretty well in this game, if not really well. And on the other side, Geno Smith had a great game himself. And so did Kenneth Walker. He had 3 touchdowns in this game, coming off an oblique injury. The fact that he was able to come back and not really be slowed down by that whatsoever. It was crazy. DK had a good game. Even the other two guys, and Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba, both had solid games for fantasy purposes as well. This was very encouraging from new offensive coordinator Ryan Grubbs. He seemed to know what he's doing against that defense in Detroit. So I like what I saw on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, it was impressive. Obviously, defensively, both sides are like, all right, let's try and not give up like 35 points each. Yeah. But offensively, especially for the Seahawks, because they're like, everyone kind of knows now the Lions' offense is pretty legit, and like they get creative. And the Seahawks, there was still some question. But yeah, Geno balled, Metcalf's good, and with Kenneth Walker back, they have kind of the like trio now. Mm-hmm. But yeah, both those teams, obviously someone had to lose, but should be walking away like, all right, we got a pretty legit football team this year.
Absolutely, yeah. The Lions, I have faith that they'll kind of figure some things out on defense as well as with the Seahawks. I think McDonald there in Seattle is smart enough to figure out where he needs to move his players around, what he needs to do scheme-wise to make some things work. So I think the arrow and the stock is going up for both of those teams now. So I think this was a great kind of get-right game for Jared Goff because he was kind of struggling a little bit the first few weeks of the season. And then to be able to do that was just really impressive, and I think that's probably going to spark him going the rest of the season. So that was really impressive. Let me go on, and we'll move on to the favorite, or my favorite, Week 5 matchups against the spread here. Last week, I went 1-1-1. The one loss, one win, and one push, that's crazy that even happened. But this one, the first one I want to speak about is the Saints plus 5.5 versus the Chiefs. This may sound a little crazy, obviously, considering they just lost to the Falcons, the Saints, I should say. But I'm going to have to see it to believe it, how well the Chiefs handled the loss of Rashee Rice as well as Isaiah Pacheco. The fact they've lost this many weapons at one time is going to be a little bit tough for their offense. The offense wasn't already clicking on all cylinders in itself. They do find ways to win games, so it makes sense that they could still pull off the win, but I think the Saints can stay competitive, and that's why I like the points here.
Yeah, I do think the Saints could stay competitive, but I don't know if it's just I enjoy disagreeing with you or if every take I just think that like the Spagnuolo defense is gonna figure out Kamara. If they can figure out Kamara and receiver guy, that's really good.
Rashee, yeah.
And like if they can figure out those two, I don't know if Derek Carr can win the game on his own. And I think this might be the Travis Kelce just like because they're prime time too. Yeah, because aren't they?
I think they are Monday night. I think. Yeah. So that's a good point. Because if Spagnuolo's smart, and he is smart, he will just implement the exact same thing that Vic Fangio did for the Eagles against the Saints.
Do what someone else did that worked.
100%. Yeah, you put the blueprint out there.
Chris Jones, you just tell those guys to make some stuff happen.
Correct. Yeah, Chris Jones can more or less do the same things that Jalen Carter was able to do against the Saints in that game. For sure. And so, I think they have a good chance. Like I said, am I going to be shocked if they win the game? Absolutely not. But I'll take that competitive. I'll take the points there because I think they can keep it close. Next one, Seahawks -6 versus the Giants. This one, I'm just caught up in the fact that the Seahawks look so good on offense against the Detroit Lions. Giants not looking so hot on offense right now.
Where is it?
I think it's in New York, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not actually 100% sure, but honestly, I don't think I care. I think I have this vision of what happened last year when the Seahawks played the Giants, and it was just an absolute massacre, and I think it can happen again. I think the Giants on defense are a little bit better than they were last year, but I still think the weapons that the Seahawks have, and if Kenneth Walker keeps playing the way he is, I think they can completely blow the doors off the Giants.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on this one. I think the Seahawks go to New York, and especially after this loss, they need a win. They know they need a win. They want a convincing one.
And especially I don't know, Malik Neighbors obviously got a concussion at the end of the game on Thursday night. So he's had a little bit of extra time to get ready for this one.
Yeah.
I still don't know if, they haven't made a decision yet if he's going to be able to play. Yeah, and I don't think he's cleared concussion protocol. If he doesn't, they have no weapons.
No.
I mean, they have Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton.
They're cooked.
Exactly. Yeah. But he has been their offense. I think he had 23 targets in the game against the Cowboys. And so, if he's not playing, I just don't see a chance at all. So, Next one, Patriots -1 versus the Dolphins. I was curious to see what you feel about this one, but I like the Patriots in this one. The Dolphins, what I watched against them, against the Titans, was
horrible.
It was unbearable to watch. I liked the idea of Tyler Huntley in the offense, but I guess maybe it was just like his first week in there. He just got there. He doesn't really know the playbook well, so they had to put together this minimalistic version of the playbook. Maybe because it's week 2, he'll learn a little bit more about it, that he could progress and the offense can look a little bit better. But man, I just don't have any faith in what the Dolphins put on tape offensively, and I think the Patriots defense is good enough to keep them at bay at the very most, or at the very least. And I think Brissett can get enough field goals essentially to get this game done. And I mean, essentially, it's just a pick 'em at -1. So
I think Tyler Huntley, I think I saw this on Twitter, had to have been the first guy to overthrow Tyreek Hill.
No, that was crazy. Yeah.
But the threat of Hill now basically is just gone because he's frustrated. Yep. They cannot get him the ball. But I would agree with you on this one too. I feel like the Patriots defense is good enough and their offense is decent enough to where I don't know if they'll out field goal them, but I just don't see the Dolphins scoring very many points.
No, they couldn't score a whole lot against the Titans, and I would say the Titans defense and the Patriots defense are pretty comparable in talent level and stuff. So I just like the Patriots -1 in that matchup. All right, that's pretty much it for those Week 5 matchups that I like. Let's move on to potential player movement. Obviously, the trade deadline is about a month away. It's November 5th at 4 p.m., but there's already rumors. There's already trade requests going out there. Davante Adams already requested a trade. There was the social media bugaboo scandal thing where essentially somebody went out there and tweeted or put up a picture on Instagram and said this might have been the last time we see Davante Adams as a Raider. And then apparently Antonio Pierce, head coach of the Raiders, liked the post, which is never a good thing when it comes to the relationship of those two guys. So it looks like Davante Adams has already requested a trade, and they're looking for suitors right now. Obviously, it takes 2 to tango. Somebody's going to have to pay exactly what the Raiders want in order for this to get done. But I don't think Davante Adams is going to play for the Raiders as long as this kind of saga continues, because he doesn't want to get hurt. The Raiders don't want to get him hurt. So for fantasy purposes, this is kind of a disaster for those managers. Now, on the opposite side of it, you have the people like me who, if you're in a position, or you're 4-0 in your fantasy league, I'm 3-1. You can afford to maybe go out and say, hey, let me grab Davante Adams from you. Yeah, let me take him off your hands. He's not going to play until he gets traded. You might not be able to afford to wait until he does get traded. Let me take him, and I'll sit him on my bench until he's ready to come back, and he gets traded to the Jets, the Steelers,
all of a sudden,
the Ravens.
He's receiver 1, and then he's putting up the numbers he once did.
100%. So somebody needs to take advantage of that if you're on the opposite end of that. The other side, I feel bad for you, because he's just going to be chilling on your bench for a while, unless you get a really good haul that you feel good about for somebody that's trying to poach him from you, essentially, like one of us. But yeah, Davante Adams potentially moving on. A lot of suitors out there, like I said before. The Commanders were in the Ayuk sweepstakes. So were the Steelers. They've already proven that they want another number 1 type wide receiver in their offense. I like both of those spots. I personally, as an Eagles fan, don't like the Commander spot as much. Would not like that. But, man, if you gave Justin Fields, George Pickens, and Davante Adams, he's already playing well enough for them to, I feel like, make a move like this. That would be awesome. And then you have a guy, or a team like the Jets, obviously. You have the Aaron Rodgers connection there. I think that would be a great spot. I think they'd hit the ground running from day one. Nathaniel Hackett was the OC whenever they were in Green Bay as well. So that could work out well. Do you have any other thoughts about Davante Adams moving?
I saw some things about the Chiefs cap space. They have a chance, and obviously they don't need him, but if they
they need somebody, though.
Yeah, they need a receiver, and God forbid they get Davante, and then it's if they have him, Rice comes back, Pacheco comes back, and Kelsey, just forget about it.
Yeah, I think if we see the Chiefs make a move, it pretty much spells the end for Rashee Rice's season.
For sure.
But I feel like we're going to get news in the next couple of days,
100%.
at the very least, for Rashee Rice, because they're not going to want to drag it out continuously.
No.
But what I will say is, from what I heard, like cap casualty wise or cap salary cap wise, it looks like the Chiefs can't actually afford Davante Adams. He's a little bit too expensive.
I think they have to owe like $13 million.
Yeah, something. It's outrageous. Some teams got to have some money.
Yeah, some people do, but which is why for them, the Chiefs should stick more to an Amari Cooper, like someone I don't want to say worse, but less expensive.
Yep.
Like who they can pay and they can be kind of a number one just to help the offense.
Yeah, some of the exact same teams we were just alluding to there that want another wide receiver on their, to put together a little bit better of a puzzle for them offensively are going to be the same people that are probably vying for a guy like Amari Cooper if he becomes available. Looks like a lot of his salary has been moved to like the bonuses and whatnot. So whoever ends up trading for him, it's mostly just the draft capital that's going towards the Browns. So he is way more affordable when it comes to that. And I think Amari Cooper to the Chiefs would be incredible if that were to happen. I think that would be a great fit. He's a great route runner, can go deep still, even though he's a little bit long in the tooth. So is Davante Adams for that matter. But both of them operate more as route runners anyways, and that's how they make separation and get separation. So I don't think the fact they're older is that big of a deal for both of these offenses. So I really like Amari Cooper to the Chiefs. I prefer Davante Adams to the Jets. I think that would be awesome for them to both just kind of assimilate in both those offenses.
Yeah, I agree. I hope they both find the right fit because everyone should. But the Chiefs need a receiver, and the Steelers, Justin Fields needs just a hair bit of help, and that team can be really good. Yeah,
he's put enough good tape on the field for them to be like, I think we need to capitalize on this, and I think we can make a decent little playoff run.
Because their defense is also so good.
So good, yeah. I think somebody's going to get one of these two players, and they're gonna make a little bit of a run, for sure. All right, that's pretty much it for this week's episode of the podcast. I appreciate everybody listening.
I wanted to shout out my fantasy picks from last week.
I
talked about Deontay Johnson and Travis Kelce, and both of them just absolutely balled.
That's right.
So, Panthers fans, rise up.
Shout out to that. We got some decent fantasy advice on this podcast.
4-0 right here.
3-1. I'll take 3-1.
8.1% of America's 4-0.
That's right.
We're looking at one
part of it. Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I'm having to scrap and claw right now with the fact that Rashee Rice just went down for me. AJ Brown already went out for me, and Cooper Kupp went down. So I'm scrapping and clawing with the depth that I have on my bench, but we'll see if I can survive this little dip in injury. But it is what it is.
That's life.
Yeah, that's right. All right, so we will talk to you guys next week. Please follow on the TikTok, the Instagram, or not Instagram, the Twitter, and follow on YouTube once again. And we appreciate you listening. We'll see you next week. See you.
Peace.